Millions of metaphors have been made throughout hip-hop history, but the one that the culture loves the most comes from Common's 1994 single, I Used to Love Her. It's a love song where Common writes about a girl who he has loved for practically his whole life, through them growing together and then growing apart. It's a complicated relationship, and he describes all of its evolutions perfectly. And then, in the last line of the song, he pulls the rug out from underneath us to reveal that the girl he has been rapping about this whole time has been hip-hop herself.
Cause who I'm talking about, y'all, is hip-hop.
This is one of the best written songs in hip-hop history, with the reveal at the end being something that I think every hip-hop head should experience at least once in their life. When Common wrote this song, hip-hop was still so young, just over 20 years since it was created in the Bronx. But in this young love story, Common is able to describe the life of the culture so well. This song is a history lesson for anyone trying to understand the movements within the culture's first 21 years.
I met this girl when I was 10 years old, and what I love most, she had so much soul.
That first line is so iconic and expertly sets up this love story. This isn't just some fling for Common. This is someone who has been deeply rooted within him for almost his whole life. He introduces us to his love for her when they first met. She was a little older than him, coming from New York, so she had an allure to her. Common was infatuated, and like all young romantics and hip-hop heads alike, he had dreams that someday he might be able to get with her eventually, if it was meant to be, but it would be because they related physically and mentally. That whole first verse talks about her with the reverence of someone talking about their first love. His love for hip-hop was innocent at the time. He treated her with respect, and he would just cool out and listen to her. You can hear him replaying old memories in his mind of the good times they had together, and he ends up saying that he kisses her, showing that this innocence has been lost in the years since. On the second verse, he gets a little older and starts to encounter her at parties and clubs, and she evolves too. She started embracing her heritage and Afrocentricity. This was around the time that the Native Tongues Collective and conscious rap began to rise in prominence. This was when Common finally made his move. She dug his rap and they became close. But then, as what often happens with high school sweethearts, life pulled them apart. She moved out west around the time that he went to college, so naturally they took a few years apart. While out west, she evolved again, saying that Afrocentricity was of the past, so she got into R&B, hip house, bass, and jazz. She was becoming well-rounded, so Common wasn't salty even though she was changing into a woman who was not the same as the one that he fell in love with. While out west, she started being free like Freestyle Fellowship and hanging out with boys in the hood. But as the third verse comes along, the changes in her lifestyle become more drastic. Common fell in love with who she was at her core, but once the industry got to her, he altered her native self. She started selling out her true self for money. She was appearing on commercials and reaching the world, no longer in touch with her inner city roots. She now talks about guns and drugs, a far cry from the socially conscious woman that he fell in love with. She's not as pure to him as she once was. Now that everyone was doing her and rapping, he reminisces about why he did her. Not just to say he did it, but because he was committed to the culture. And as the song closes out, he realized that he needs to take her back in hopes that all the bad stuff that happened to her will stop. And at the very last second, he lets us know that this girl is hip-hop.
Cause who I'm talking about, y'all, is hip-hop.
This song honors the true form of hip-hop that Common fell in love with as a kid. The hook sounds out of place among the jazzy, forward-thinking freedom that Common writes with on the rest of his Resurrection album. It's so simple, with him just saying, yes, yes, y'all, you don't stop, to the beat, y'all, and you don't stop. This is a direct callback to the way that MCs would keep the party going in the 70s and early 80s, when hip-hop was at its purest. Common even reinterprets lyrics of Eazy-E and the Jungle Brothers.
Easily I approach the microphone because I ain't no joke.
So easily I approach. She dug my rap, that's how we got close.
Let's do this, not just to say we did it, cause I'm committed.
Girl, he's committed.
I did her, not just to say I did it, but I'm committed. But
it's no accident that he sampled these two artists specifically, representing when hip-hop was Afrocentric and then when she went out west. Common's I Used to Love Her is not only a reference of the hip-hop that happened before it, but it also has become a cultural touchstone, being sampled and referenced countless times over the years. The most known flip of this song is Kanye West's Homecoming, where he takes Common's opening lines and recontextualizes it to make the woman he raps about be the city of Chicago instead of hip-hop.
I met this girl when I was 3 years old, and what I love most, she had so much soul.
Common himself has actually reached back to this topic a few times over the course of his career. In 1999, he joined The Roots for their song Act 2, Love of My Life, which is essentially the sequel to I Used to Love Her. Common's verse takes us through his relationship with her over the past half-decade since he released the original. He continues the story following up on her mainstream path, linking up with artists like Hype Williams and P. Diddy, further separating herself from the woman that he fell in love with all those years ago. She was now close to 30, and even though Common didn't like what had become of his love, he realized that it was her fate or destiny to bring the best out of him. He and hip-hop were soulmates, whether he liked it or not. He'd returned to making songs about her 3 years later on Erykah Badu's Love of My Life. Common has a short verse on this song, sort of just hitting the main notes of his first 2 entries of the series. But it is very cool hearing Erykah Badu give her version of these verses, personifying hip-hop as the man in her life. This writing technique of personifying something grand and abstract has become a calling card for so many lyricists in hip-hop, but nobody does it quite like Common. On his latest album, The Auditorium, he has the song So Many People, which takes the I Used to Love Her concept and expands it, rapping 3 verses, one about destiny, one about faith, and one about hope, all as people who he has met in his life. Common is one of the greatest rappers ever, and this is his most important song. He could go back to this well 100 more times, and I'll always be excited to hear what he has to say about hip-hop and how she's changed. In 1994, I know his love for her was fading, but I will continue to love her forever, and I know that he will too. And of course, the girl I'm talking about is hip-hop.
Cause who I'm talking about, y'all, is hip-hop.
Thanks for watching, everybody. I've been wanting to make this video for years now, so I'm so glad to finally get it done. This year is just starting out, so let me know down in the comments what are some other video topics you want to see me cover. Head over to my Patreon if you want to get all of my videos early and to have the ability to vote on future video topics, get free digital copies of Def Magazine, and a whole bunch of other perks as well. I recently just added 2 more tiers to the Patreon. So if you are looking to support and get some bonus stuff from me, then make sure to go check that out over at patreon.com/DefGoldblum. And as always, I got a lot more headed your way, so stay tuned, stay safe, and stay def. Thanks for watching.